Coming up on Tech News today, Apple reveals what it would take to create its insecure iOS for the FBI. Stephen Petrow of USA Today gives us a real-world example of why security should matter to everyone. Computers know if you're bored or not, and we're all clueless on Tinder. That's all coming up next on Tech News today.
This is Twit.
Bandwidth for Tech News Today is provided by CacheFly at CACHEFLY.com. Hi, everybody. It's time for our annual audience survey. We'd really like to hear from you. It helps us understand our audience better, know what you like and don't like, how you listen to the show. It also helps us tell advertisers what kind of people listen. But I promise you, your feedback is always kept personally anonymous. All you have to do is visit twit.tv/survey and let us know what you think. It'll just take a few minutes, and it'll help us make Twit even better. We really appreciate your support and any help you can give us. twit.tv/survey.
This is Tech News Today, episode 1457, recorded Thursday, February 25th, 2016.
This episode of Tech News Today is brought to you by Score Big. Pay less for quality seats to your favorite sporting and music events. Go to scorebig.com, click on the microphone, and enter promo code TNT to save $20 off your first purchase.
And by the Ring video doorbell. With Ring, you can see and talk to anyone at your door from anywhere in the world using your smartphone. It's like caller ID for your home. Right now, get free expedited FedEx shipping when you go to ring.com/TNT.
And by Igloo software. Igloo is an intranet you'll actually like. It connects people with the information they need to do their best work. Try it for free at igloosoftware.com/twit or sign up for a live demo to see it in action. Hello and welcome to Tech News Today. This is the show where we talk about the tech news with people who love to talk about the tech news, and with you, people who like to listen to.
That's why we bring them on.
Yes, exactly. If they didn't love it, you'd know.
Yeah, that's true. You probably know pretty fast.
I am Megan Morrone.
And I am Jason Howell. The person that loves technology today that's on with us is none other than Iain Thomson from The Register. How's it going, Iain?
Oh, pretty good. Good afternoon to you. Enjoying this lovely sunshine weather down in San Francisco.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. It's kind of making me fear the future.
Mm-hmm.
But then again, I like warmth. So I'm down.
Well, what's the alternative? Move to Portland and get rained on all the time? Nah.
I suppose so. Real quick here, you were kind of writing up about the SpaceX Falcon 9 launch. What happened?
Well, we don't actually know. Basically, they halted the launch with 101 seconds left to go before kickoff. We don't actually know the reason as yet. I mean, they really were in the last stages. They were just topping off the tanks and dealing with the last of the liquid oxygen fuel going in there. So at the moment, it's scrubbed. They're not going to be able to launch for at least another couple of days, and they've got a very tight launch window. So it's all looking a bit iffy at the moment. They'll get it up there, but just not today.
All right, should we get into our top story?
Let's do it.
Today, Apple filed a formal opposition to last week's federal mandate to create a tool that would allow the FBI to bypass the security in the iPhone 5C that was owned by the employer of one of the terrorists who killed 14 people in San Bernardino last year. Now, Iain, you read the entire 40-plus page motion. What is the most important thing that people should know about it?
Well, Apple is saying that it would be technically possible to do what the FBI asked, but it would be a breach of their constitutional rights as a company. It would be incredibly dangerous, and it would open the company up to basically being another arm of law enforcement. I mean, if you read through the memo, they destroy every single one of the government's arguments as to why this would be a good idea.
They also, I mean, last week we talked about how a lot of people, the FBI was saying Apple's just using this for marketing, which, I said, well, that doesn't really make sense because it doesn't look good because it looks like they're siding with the terrorists. But a lot of people pointed out that in this opposition, it says, the FBI is the one that has been talking about this in a way that they haven't talked about cases in the past, blogging about it. What do you make of that?
Yeah, this has been something that's really quite interesting. I mean, Apple has been helping the FBI on hundreds, if not thousands of cases where they've got a legitimate, where there's stuff that they can actually do. But in this case, generally those are kept under seal. But in this case, for some reason, the FBI actually wanted this out in public, and against Apple's wishes, as I understand it, went public with this in a very sort of media frenzy sort of a way. I think, to be honest, this really doesn't look good for the FBI, because what it means is that they were wanting to set this one up as a test case to build some case law in the courts. And you can see why, you know, terrorists, 14 people dead. It's the kind of thing that's traditionally used to scare Americans into giving up their rights. So, I mean, it was a very carefully picked case, I think, by the FBI. And I think that really got Apple's sort of the hair up on the back of their neck. And, you know, they really realized that they've got to fight this one. And the rest of the tech industry has, by and large, come in behind them on it.
Yeah, I mean, today, Google, Facebook, Microsoft, they're all supporting. I guess Google and Facebook are going to also file motions in support, and then Microsoft will follow. It is interesting. I think we've made a lot of comparisons in the last week. We talk about safes, and we talk about keys, and we talk about Second Amendment rights and free speech. And one thing I was thinking about today was, you know, I lived through the whole Microsoft case, you know, against the government. And in that point, I think we all sort of felt like the government was really protecting us, regulating in a way to protect us. But this is so different. Yeah,
I mean, and particularly when you consider that, you know, this was to do this, they're using a law that was written in 1789. I mean, it's a phenomenally broad use of the law itself. And yeah, I think the tech industry realizes what is going on here and what actually needs to be done. I have to say, I was a bit disappointed with Google's initial statements on the matter. They seemed rather tepid. And Bill Gates reportedly said that the FBI did have a right to actually search on these phones, and then rolled it back a bit. And he was like, well, that's not exactly what I said, and then gave another bunch of interviews. But generally, the tech industry is behind this, and the FBI, I think, is getting a little bit worried that they may have stuck their toes into a hornet's nest.
Yeah, it could go either way, I suppose, because Apple's pressed so hard with it, it could go the other way. And then you realize, hey, you know, because they pressed so hard with it in the other direction, it brought about all this change that the tech industry does not want. We actually have gotten a ton of email, but just real quick here, one of the points from one of the emailers was the question of whether there's precedent around requiring a company to create something specifically for their case in this case. Clarence McDowell says, has any government ever successfully compelled a company or person to create unique speech program for its benefit? On free speech terms, doesn't Apple have the right not to speak? What do you think about that, Iain?
Yeah, well, this is something that Apple brought up in the motion, and they were saying, you know, the very notion that they are being compelled to make tools for the government is going to be one of the central planks of their case. I mean, there have been rumors that this sort of thing has gone on before. I mean, we're talking about Windows 95 and the suspected backdoor for the NSA. But when it comes to actually creating a new operating system, they call it Government OS in the court filing. It's fraught with problems, because they reckon it would take 6 to 10 engineers who would have to work solely on this, probably for about 4 weeks to actually come up with the software. Then once the software has been used once, it has to be destroyed. Because if it goes to the FBI, it could be stolen, because we all saw from the Office of Personnel Management that government IT security is not particularly good. And then once they'd actually created it, Apple could be subpoenaed, and in the legal proceedings going on, they would have to explain how they created it. So that would make hackers' ears really prick up, and if they followed the case closely, they could get some clues as to how to balk Apple's operating system. But I think the company is fighting back on this, and the next iteration of iOS, we're going to see, I think Apple has learned what it needs to do in order to make sure that it can't do this sort of thing in the future.
Yeah, that's exactly what they want, right? One thing Apple wants more than anything right now is not to be in the position of having any sort of actual access to locked iPhones or the protected information on them. As such, the company is working on new modes of security that would prevent the feds from the access that they seek in this case. Apple could do this because of federal wiretap laws don't currently force tech companies into making its data accessible the way it compels phone carriers to do currently. And Congress would have to get involved for that to change. So until then, Apple will do what it can to remove themselves from the equation entirely. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. This is because, I mean, they referenced the Clear legislation, which has been used. And you're right, that's specifically for telecommunications providers, whereas Apple is technically an information provider, and as such isn't really covered by that. Now, the government was considering doing Clear 2 legislation, which would have enforced that, but the Obama regime sort of backed off from that towards the end of last year, and basically decided to let the courts sort it out. It's interesting that Director Comey from the FBI was actually testifying in Congress today, and he said that it's up to legislators to sort this out, and actually going through court cases is going to be a very long, drawn-out and difficult process, which will hamper investigations.
But it does seem like the law is where this needs to be decided, right? There needs to be a law. I mean, I don't think that Tim Cook's saying, like, you come up with a law and I don't like it and I'm not going to follow it. Like, he just wants a law. And it doesn't,
Right, he wants some sort of,
Yeah, so he can decide I was only obeying the law and there's nothing we can do on it and take it up with your congressman.
Sure, because if Apple as a company gives in too easily on this, then they're seen as not really caring about their customers, who have kind of bought into this idea that they're safe using those products. It's kind of almost as if Apple would be complicit if they gave in too easily. Yeah. Another big challenge that Apple has is in protecting itself while making keeping themselves as a company protected while still making a product that's easy for general consumers. Like, for example, protecting iCloud with forced encryption might mean that, a user might accidentally lose the password. And then what happens? They lose all of that information, all that data, their photos that they kept on the servers. I'm not sure if the general public is ready for that necessarily, because they're not ready necessarily for the risks that come with being secure to that level. And Apple wants to make sure that their products are always very open to the consumer. And this, in some view, could be kind of anti-consumer, I guess, if that was the risk.
It's also a real problem for Apple in terms of marketing their phone abroad. I was speaking to the Silent Circle people who do Black Phone, the hardened Android phone.
Right.
80% of their sales come from overseas. And every time there's a story about the NSA or a story about this story, with the government seeking access to phones, their sales take a big boost. But what Apple and Google are worried about is that if they actually do comply and they do install backdoors, then their sales are going to tank. Because who honestly wants to buy a phone that can be hacked by law enforcement? It makes no sense.
It is, yeah. I mean, and let's move on and talk a little bit about Tim Cook's interview last night on ABC. I watched it all this morning, and a few things struck me. I mean, this is the first discussion that I've heard about personal safety. He was really pushing that personal safety thing. He repeatedly talks about many things, including how the location of our children are on our phones. I thought that was interesting. I hadn't really heard that. But, I mean, he was clearly making a plea to the average people or average people like myself who, have the Find My iPhone, so, they know where their kids are. Well, if someone gets your phone, then and has access to it, they will all, is able to get that back door, and they'll also know where your children are, which is something that I wonder if was a wake-up call to some people who watch ABC. He also had to keep answering the same questions over and over again, and he repeatedly said, like, in a perfect world, we would build this tool, but this is not a perfect world. I also, not to keep hounding on the fact that I have children, but I will say it again, like, that is how I speak to my children. Like, you just say, like, yes, I would love to build this back door for you, but I can't. In a perfect world, I would. That,
but no.
And it was, so, and it is interesting. I will try to, like, keep my love of Tim Cook, at bay, but everyone probably who knows me knows that I'm a huge fan, and watching him just like, he should run for president. And then he says something like, well, we're here for our customers. And then you're reminded he's a giant corporation. Like, he is there for his customers.
Oh yes, and to make money for his shareholders, which is at the end of the day. Yeah, that interview was quite interesting. He was banging on about the children line a fair bit, and usually that's the FBI's line. In Comey's testimony today, he did actually say, we need this stuff to rescue children and rescue people from terrorists. It's usually child abusers, terrorists, drug dealers, and organized crime, the four horsemen of the Infopocalypse, which get dragged out again and again and again to excuse this sort of stuff. But Cook is, I don't know, he seems to have found himself thrust into the position of being a defender of liberty, and I'm not sure he really relishes the task. He looked kind of uncomfortable. I mean, did you get that feeling?
I did think he looked a little uncomfortable, just frustrated. Like, why do I have to answer the same question again and again?
I mean, the weight of the world is, at least in regards to the company.
Yeah.
And maybe he's used to it by now because he is the guy at Apple. But, I mean, there's so much weight on him right now, not just from the regular usual places either. I mean, this extends so much further out and has so many greater implications than I think, he's used to dealing with on a regular basis. Heck, anyone would be intimidated in that situation.
Oh, yeah. I mean, his background is in operations. I mean, he's very, very good at that. But when you're dealing with sort of going head-to-head with the government and the head of the FBI, it's a very different kettle of fish.
Yeah, so it's good that the other companies have stood up. So it's not just like
Right.
an app, Apple standing up for this. I think that's good news.
Well, and they have all the reason in the world to do that because this affects them eventually, if not immediately. Kind of transitioning on to a few other stories that are making the news. Sure, pitting your AI against the world champion Go player is impressive and all, but what about meaningful change for mankind? Google's DeepMind Health is an initiative aimed at medical professionals for creating apps that can help identify patients at risk of certain ailments. They're beginning actually with acute kidney disease. There's no AI that's being integrated at this point, but eventually so, possibly for condition prediction, for predicting whether someone may be at risk of something or whatever. And there's an iPhone app, Streams, that's basically around, for hospital staff to kind of bring up kind of critical information about patients and expanding it beyond. So it's not just about playing the game of Go, okay? Okay, it's about much more than that.
Right. And it's not scary robots. It's good robots that are going to keep us healthy.
Well, yes. I mean, IBM's Watson's been doing stuff in this area as well. I don't know. I guess if you're a medical researcher, then this could be really handy because you've got to, nowadays you have to churn through huge amounts of data trying to find correlations. And if a computer can do that, faster, then all well and good. But I do kind of worry about my doctor trusting software more than their training itself. I like the human element when it comes to medicine. I do think we need to keep an eye on where we're going on that one.
For sure, yeah. Hopefully, I guess eventually not total reliance, but kind of a combination of both. Best of all worlds.
Yeah. I mean, the last time you came on, we talked about the state of IT security in healthcare. And, we talked about part of that is just doctors' reluctance to get on the bandwagon for a lot of these technologies. So, that'll be interesting what they face with this as well.
Yeah, I mean, doctors and tech generally don't mix together very well, so we shall see.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, Black Lives Matter has been an important movement and a much needed one since a lot of people have apparently begun to think that some Black lives do not matter. And some of those people might just be the same people in charge of the Facebook algorithm that decides how you spend the better part of your day, if you spend the better part of your day on Facebook. Megan Rose Dickey at TechCrunch says that Mark Zuckerberg had to send a memo to employees, taking them to task for defacing Black Lives Matter slogans on their walls and changing them to All Lives Matter. So his point was they were crossing out Black Lives Matter and writing All Lives Matter, and that's a way of silencing. There's a lot of comments on the internet, of course, if you spend your time reading those sorts of things, which I do, which say, well, what if I wrote All Lives Matter? Would that be okay? So I don't know. It's a tough one. I'm glad that he understands this because it feels like a lot of people coming from the background of his don't really understand it. So
Zuckerberg did had a really good explanation for it, I thought, in the memo. It totally resonated with me. He said, Black Lives Matter doesn't mean other lives don't. It's simply asking that the Black community also achieves the justice that they deserve. I guess I was just kind of surprised. I mean, I've heard that at Facebook you can, the walls are for writing and all that kind of stuff. I guess I was just kind of shocked to hear that this is happening so blatantly. It sounds like such a strange thing to be happening in the halls of a large corporation like Facebook or elsewhere. I don't know. What do you think, Iain?
I was really puzzled by this because I mean, generally, Silicon Valley is not a place where you find an awful lot of racism and prejudice. Now, I gather there are a fair few people out there who really don't get that Black Lives Matter doesn't mean that white lives don't, or anyone else's life for that matter. But yeah, I was a little bit shocked by this. I guess there are wankers in any organization, and they can come to the fore with this sort of thing. But it boggles the mind that there's that level of stupidity at Facebook.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, that's me. Apple rumors. Let's shift to Apple rumors. This is kind of rumor land now. Forgot that I had this one. Apple rumor hounds. Here's some bits of information from Mark Gurman at 9to5 Mac. The iPad Pro line is about to expand into the 9.7-inch form factor. Should be revealed at Apple's March 15th event. It'll include a smart connector and a smaller smart keyboard cover, pricing near the current iPad Air models that we have now. And actually the iPad Air as well as the iPad Mini 2 are likely to be discontinued as a result. So building up a line, if this news is accurate, which is from Mark Gurman, so it usually is, building up a lineup of iPad Pros. Good to have options because that's a pretty cool device, I got to say.
Well, it is funny that everyone was just like, I need a bigger iPad. I need a bigger iPad.
Now I need a smaller iPad. But with a pen, please.
Yes, it's a pencil. But
A pencil,
that's the other
sorry,
thing. This
see?
one will support the pencil.
I don't have an iPad Pro. So
Because, yeah, I mean, I love my iPad Pro. It is very big, but yeah, I mean, I don't know what I love about it most, the size or the fact that I can use a pencil and it has a smart connector. And so, yeah, and I was also just impressed with Mark Gurman, like all of this legal constitutional stuff. And he's just like, and hey, I'm still covering the Mac rumor beat. Like, I'm still talking about smaller iPads versus bigger iPads. And so it was kind of a nice breath of fresh air.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, you actually own an iPad Pro, don't you, Megan?
I own an iPad Pro. And I use it all the time, except for right now.
You see, I have something like that. It's called a Surface, and Microsoft did this well in advance of this iPad Pro. It's very nice to see Microsoft following Apple's lead, Apple following Microsoft's lead on this, and very satisfying as a Windows user as well.
Right, and your stylus hooks like magnetically to the side of your Surface, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
yes, that's
I know.
right.
When Apple does that, they'll be like, "Look at us! We just made a pencil that sticks to the side of an iPad Pro. Why doesn't Microsoft do that?"
Oh, indeed. Yeah. Well, I remember when the original Apple iPad Pro came out, somebody actually found a cartoon from done, I think, about 4 years ago, where, it was of Tim Cook holding up and saying, oh, look, we've invented this, and we've invented the stylus, and Steve Ballmer tearing his hair, what's left of his hair out in the corner. Actually quite prescient. But, I mean, I don't know. It's a needed thing certainly for Apple customers. I am hearing an awful lot of support for the iPad Pro. I mean, you've been using it now for a few months. What's your take on it? Has it become your primary computer, or is it something that's more of a secondary device?
It is a secondary device, a companion device, I'd like to call it. I just figured out, I just found an app that I use the Apple Pencil with, and it turns my handwriting into text, which I think is really useful. Greg, who runs our prompter, is an artist, and he often borrows it and draws amazing pictures that I then try to pretend are my own. But yeah, it's great with the keyboard. I like it, but it's not for everybody.
Yeah, and not for everything.
Right.
Otherwise, you might be using it here. I don't know. My experience just in tablets and doing these shows is that the tablet form factor just never seems to be perfect. There's nothing quite like the full laptop experience.
Yeah, and if you live...
So I wouldn't hold that against the iPad Pro necessarily. Right. I think that's just kind of a different story.
Yeah, and we use Google Sheets primarily for this show, and that it's horrible for that. So.
Yeah, I mean, I for all the Surface is still very much a backup thing for me, because I do a lot of writing on the train on the way into work in the morning. And trying to get any kind of tablet to work on your knee on a busy BART train while the whole thing's shaking around it's really an enormous pain in the fundament. So you've basically got to have the laptop with a stiff cover and the screen which can stand up on its own rights, as far as I can see.
Yeah.
Well, coming up, you might have seen the story from the USA Today reporter Stephen Petrow, who was hacked mid-flight while he was writing about the iPhone encryption story. We're going to hear his story after the break. But first, let's take a minute to thank ScoreBig, the sponsor of this episode. We all spend too much time with our devices, our primary devices, our companion devices, all the devices. Now we can watch or listen to almost anything on them. Who needs to leave the house? We do, because live performances of anything, whether it be the musical Hamilton or the San Francisco Giants game or a Bruce Springsteen concert or an AMA Supercross Motorcycle Championship, whatever it is, you can bet that there's a way to pay less for better seats. How? Just go to scorebig.com. 40% of all live event tickets go unsold. Scorebig is making it easy to attend live events by working directly with your favorite teams and artists to get their unsold seats at unpublished prices. At scorebig.com, you are always guaranteed huge savings by paying much less than what the box office charges for tickets. They have incredible deals on tickets to concerts, sports, games, Broadway productions, and family-friendly events. To take advantage of these amazing deals, visit scorebig.com and find the event and seats that you want. Then make an offer with Scorebig's Name a Ticket Price feature. You'll receive an answer from Scorebig instantly, and you can save up to 60% on your tickets. You also have an option to pay a fixed price, which is much less expensive than major online ticket resellers. With Scorebig, there are no surprise fees, and you even get free shipping. You can also favorite shows and events to be notified on upcoming dates to attend, which is such a convenient feature. So quit overpaying for tickets. Get the tickets you want at prices you can afford with ScoreBig. The next time you're planning to attend a game or a show, visit ScoreBig first and see how much you can save. Go to scorebig.com, click on the microphone, and enter the promo code TNT to save an extra $20 off your first ticket purchase. That's scorebig.com, promo code TNT.
All right. So hopefully here anyways, joining us is Stephen Petrow. He is a columnist for USA Today. How's it going, Stephen?
Very well. I am here. Nice to be with you.
Really appreciate you coming on today. We read your article yesterday where you realized firsthand what it means to take security, I guess, more seriously. Set the scene a little bit and tell us what happened while you were on that flight last week.
Yeah, I certainly learned a couple of lessons, too, in this whole experience. So Friday night, I was flying back from Dallas to Raleigh-Durham, where I live, and I was behind on my work. I had a column due, and the story was going to be about what would happen if Apple lost its case with the FBI. What would the ramifications possibly be for ordinary Americans? And I kind of outlined some different scenarios in some of these emails that I sent to possible sources. And I closed down my computer and read for a little while. And we landed. And as I was putting my jacket on, this fellow in the row behind me came up and said, "I need to talk to you." And I was like, well, it's midnight. You know, it's kind of time for me to go home. And he said, "Well, you're a reporter, aren't you?" And I was like, "Well, that's kind of weird." Yeah, you know, I don't usually get called out that way. And he said, "Wait for me when you get off the plane." He said it with kind of an authority, and I was also a little bit curious and a little bit concerned. So I did wait. And when he got off, I didn't even have the opportunity to say, "How do you know that I'm a reporter?" when he told me or said, "You're interested in that Apple FBI story." I was like, whoa, this is like freaky. He's a mind reader. I don't know what's going on. And then he told me he had hacked into my computer on the American Airlines flight through the GoGo internet service. And I was like, whoa, I didn't even know that was possible. I thought, like so many of my readers who have written me this week, that it was a secure system and that we had basic protections in place. You know, one thing I've learned through all of this is that all of those public Wi-Fi hotspots are not secure, whether it's GoGo or if you're at Starbucks. It's very easy for someone like my intimate stranger to hack in.
So you were using an Earthlink email account. Do you think that was part of the problem?
So that is another problem. So yeah, I come to this, you know, with a number of issues that I'm quickly resolving. I'm going to be ditching that Earthlink account as soon as I can, because messages are not encrypted when you send them.
That was my question. Yeah, that's what I was wondering.
So that's the problem. Other services tend to encrypt them, so they're much more secure. But the situation with the public Wi-Fi is you can break in and see things pretty clearly. But definitely, you know, lessons to self and lessons to listeners. Get a VPN on every device you have. That's a virtual private network. Don't use a service like GoGo. Don't use an email provider like Earthlink. Make sure that your passwords are different, and there are password managers that you can use, like Dashlane. I'm about to start using that. So there are a number of steps that we can all take to protect ourselves, because this fellow was really trying to give me a teachable lesson on how vulnerable we all are. And I think the other thing that I realized was I'm the kind of person who always said, well, I don't have anything to hide. Mm-hmm. But now I realize I have information, data that I want to protect. And I want to control who's going to have access to that kind of information.
Well, that really moved me in your article, because I am, you know, also a journalist. Like, I spend a lot of time online. I reveal a lot of personal things all the time, every day. But there's also a lot of stuff that I don't reveal, and I would like to keep it private. And you need to be reminded of that. And I mean, we should say you're not like a security reporter, as Iain is. Like, you were writing, you were doing a good service of writing about why the average person should care about this.
And it turns out this is a prime example of why. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm at heart, I'm an advice columnist, so I'm barely literate when it comes to certain things in the tech world, but that's not really an excuse. I think it's incumbent on everybody to have a basic literacy when it comes to many of these things. You know, and I guess the other point that I've come to realize is, you know, we're looking at this whole Apple FBI debate as though it's, you know, these two giants fighting and that it's abstract or it's about terrorism. Well, I'm not a terrorist. I'm not a political dissident. Yet I have information that I realize I want to protect. And one of the things that seems potentially likely to come out of this case is if this back door is opened, you can't close it. And so all these devices that we have, whether it's a laptop or a phone or a smart refrigerator or a smart TV, they all then have the potential to be used against us and to provide our information to others. And so I think we need a more vigorous conversation about what all this is going to mean.
One question that I have, and maybe Iain, maybe you're aware of kind of the answer on this. You said in the story that his parting words were, "This story is important," talking about the Apple FBI case. It's about everyone's privacy. It kind of makes it sound like he was a vigilante out to inform the public, but in reality, he snooped on a lot of people. He told you that you were not the only one that he was snooping on. Is what he did illegal in any way, or is it not because it's unprotected, open communication sent out, in a public way?
It's a great question, Jason. And so I'm not a lawyer, first of all. And it's only late this afternoon that I have been told that, in fact, what he did do is illegal. It's a violation of federal statute. He seemed to, he told a colleague of mine at USA Today who talked to him that he had downloaded this Android app that allows him to hack in, to crack in. And he was kind of playing around. So he saw a number of accounts. He thought mine was particularly interesting. Gee, I'm a winner. I think because I was doing this story. But it is illegal. And, we need, it is illegal. And it's not only a sort of an ethical violation,
right.
There's a lot more to it.
Would you agree, Iain?
Yes, it's highly illegal. This is not something which you should be doing in any way, shape, or form. But on the other hand, within the security community, it's perfectly common to do this sort of thing. And I can kind of understand why he did it. If you're on a long and boring flight, you've got the tools and everyone's there, then why not have some fun and look around and see what's there? It's something which generally isn't caught, so very few people get prosecuted on. But if you are tempted, don't try this at home.
Yeah,
it's very good advice. And I watched Downton Abbey when I got bored. He could have done that too. Don't you think, Iain?
Well, yes. I mean, also, I was one of the things that
notice I chose a British show. I chose a British show.
I did. It's, if you like Downton Abbey, check out Upstairs Downstairs, the 1970s version that preceded it. What really concerned me about your story was when you think about the outrageous prices that GoGo charge for the internet access.
Totally.
The majority of the people on there are going to be business users with very sensitive business information. They could be working on Excel spreadsheets and sending them off. They could be working on business proposals or their business plan. And if this sort of thing is going to be picked up, then companies really need to tell their traveling staff exactly, what the risks are and how to protect themselves against it. Because at the moment, as you say, there's an awful lot of data floating out there, and all it takes is somebody with, the right bit of code or Wi-Fi pineapple, and they can get an absolute fortune's worth of data out of this.
Well, when I emailed with a GoGo representative, they were the first to admit that those types of protections don't exist and that users should not be using GoGo without a VPN. And then they said, well, it's in the terms of service. Okay, so they've covered their legal butts with that. But honestly, how many of us look at the terms of service? Yes, you could say we should, but you're right. Companies should be telling people. American Airlines should be, and I understand American is suing GoGo over other reasons, but will soon be rid of them. And I say, not soon enough, because they need to disclose this type of information.
Yeah, and I think it's a lot to ask of, unfortunately, to expect the general public to understand, well, you need to use a VPN when you're on an airplane. That people just don't have that as part of their habit. It's not part of their routine, and it's, a large part of that is an education factor. They just don't understand the reason for it, or they don't know, like in this example, you are, I hate to use lucky because it's not lucky, but you were lucky to know Jason. That, yeah, sorry, but you were lucky to know that it even happened. Like, this happens all the time, you have to imagine, and no one ever knows the thing because it's so easy to peer into and, walk away, and, just wash your hands of it. And you would never know that your data was accessed. And how many people are on there doing all sorts of communication and just don't consider it. They don't consider a VPN because they don't know it exists or what it is or why you would use it.
Yeah.
So if there's one takeaway from me, it's about the importance of a VPN. Absolutely.
And there are software VPNs, there's hardware VPNs, there's all sorts of options. But man, when you're traveling, like, I mean, this is a lesson that I'm learning now as well. Like, I've been pretty, touch and go on it. Sometimes I use a VPN on public Wi-Fi, sometimes I don't because it's slower or it's less convenient or whatever. And you kind of have to throw that reason out the window and just be like, it's always essential because your life is important enough. Yeah.
I mean, also the costs of VPNs are coming down all the time. So I mean, it's really a false economy to do without one, I think.
I signed up for one yesterday. It's going to cost me $39 for the year. And what is that? $3 a month, $2 a month. It's definitely worth it.
Absolutely. Stephen Petrow, really appreciate you taking some time today to come on and talk to us all about this. I think it's an important lesson for people. Obviously this is a technology network, so a lot of the people that follow this stuff know to protect themselves, but there's always the people that don't. And I think your story is a perfect example of why people need to kind of pay attention to it.
And thanks for calling me lucky. I feel much better now.
You won the security lottery, kind of.
Yay!
I don't know. Where can people follow all your work online?
My Twitter account is @StephenPetrow, and I write for USA Today every week. It's called Digital Life. So that's where they can find me.
Excellent. Stephen, thank you so much, and be safe out there.
Thank you.
All right, take care. All right, now, after this, we're going to chat with Iain about a few stories that he's been working on. But before we do that, let's take a minute and thank the sponsor of this episode. It's the Ring Video Doorbell. I happen to have it right here. We're all familiar with the sound of a doorbell. I'll give you the Ring doorbell. I'm familiar with this because I have one. It means a package is being delivered. Friends are coming over for dinner. It could mean, I don't know, someone's going to rob you. Sorry, didn't mean to do that. Total turn there. But 95% of home break-ins happen during the day, and burglars almost always start by ringing your doorbell to see if someone's home before they break in and do what they want with your stuff. With the Ring Video Doorbell, you can see and talk to anyone at your door from anywhere in the world using your smartphone. Ring's advanced motion detection alerts you even if someone doesn't ring the doorbell, and that's an option. You can either activate that or not, just have the bell ring itself and that alert you. Either way, you can be protected the way you want. With Ring Video Doorbell, you can talk to delivery people, keep an eye on the package that they drop off until you get home so you can pick it up securely. If someone tries to mess with it, you're going to get an instant alert, HD video of the whole thing, possibly saved to the cloud if you have that activated. It's like having a neighbor keep an eye on your home 24/7. I've been using the Ring Video Doorbell for months. And it's always pretty interesting when people come over the first time they ring it. It's always a conversation starter. Like they come in, they're like, "What is that doorbell? That's so cool!" And all I have to do is kind of tell them what it is and how it works, and they walk away wanting one. So there you go. Installing Ring takes minutes. It works with either your current wiring or you can use the built-in rechargeable battery. That's what I do. That lasts for a full year on a single charge. Put your mind at ease and protect your home with the Video Doorbell. Time Magazine and USA Today named one of their top 10 gadgets. Go to ring.com/TNT for free expedited FedEx shipping. That's ring.com/TNT. With Ring, you are always home. I'm home right now. Even though I'm here recording this show, I am home right now. And that's awesome.
I am also at my home, too.
Yep, we're all home right now and doing a show.
All right, computers can do the darndest things. Now they can even tell if you're bored. Iain, can you tell us about that?
No, I mean, this was really a fascinating and slightly disturbing study by the University of Sussex. Now, when we're watching something, we all make involuntary movements. They're just, whether it's just shaking your leg or, sort of eyes twitching or slight sort of hand gestures. And what they found is you could actually map this from using a camera on a computer and then a side camera to get the body. And they can gauge the level of engagement that you've got with what you're viewing on screen. So they tested this out with volunteers and found that when somebody was really engaged in what they were seeing on the screen, these things dropped by over 40%, and it was very easy to spot them. So now they're saying, well, you could get software which could do this on a computer. And of course, the reasons they give is like, oh, well, it would greatly help with computer learning because you keep children engaged and the gaming community would love it. But let's face it, the brightest minds in Silicon Valley these days are trying to get you to spend money with advertising. And advertisers are going to love this. Can you imagine if you're watching something, an advert comes on, you get bored, then the computer recognizes your board and then starts flashing stuff up on screen to try and get you back engaged. I think this is going to be possibly the most annoying development since spam.
Or that signals the advertiser that, oh yeah, at this particular point in our advertising campaign, 47 people, suddenly got bored. So next time we need to make sure that we add dogs or something, or cats. I don't know.
Yes,
Can you
more
tell
kittens.
Yes.
Can you tell if I'm bored right now?
I don't know if I want to break. I don't know if I want to, Megan.
I'm not.
Okay.
Yes. Well, I'm not a psychologist, but I mean, it's actually sort of fairly easy to get this sort of thing done. I mean, when you look at things like the Microsoft Kinect, that can actually read your heartbeat.
Mm-hmm.
So in a couple more years, we can see and more people have motion sensors in the living room and that sort of thing. It's going to get very interesting to see how this develops. And my big concern is whether or not consumers are going to be told the software is being put on their TV, on their computer, or if it's just going to be buried in the terms and conditions, like Gogo's privacy announcement. It's potentially very, very invasive.
Yeah, well, I mean, even Microsoft is doing this, right? And they're rolling out all of these apps based around Project Oxford, which is their emotion API. Things like alarm clocks that that tell you, hey, show a happy face and we'll turn the alarm off, and it knows if you show like I'm mad right now. So yeah, I mean, it's already kind of infiltrating in certain ways, more in like a playful testing sort of way, but you can see kind of where that extends off to. Mm-hmm. Speaking of Microsoft, Microsoft is going to acquire Xamarin. Explain a bit about what Xamarin is all about, Ian, and why it's making developers so dang happy.
Well, basically, it's a way for it's a platform for developing iOS apps or Android apps or even Windows Phone apps if you're that way inclined, and developing it in C#, and then sort of also with Visual Studio and other areas, and then also testing those apps and the metrics to see who's using them and how they're using them. And it's actually, I mean, as a startup goes, it's very unusual in that it's got a lot of paying customers, people like it. And it's a very successful company. Now, they've had a very close partnership with Microsoft since 2013. And to be honest, when we saw the headline, when we first got the blog post from Scott, it was just like, okay, I thought they'd already been bought by Microsoft. But no, apparently they've done a deal. I'm hearing rumors of between $400 and $500 million. So the two founders are going to be very happy, sort of 6 years work, and they're going to come away with quite a big paycheck and jobs at Microsoft.
They liked it and they wanted it, so they put a ring on it. Mm-hmm. In other words,
it's the Microsoft way. It's
right.
Either that or shut them down or buy them out, boys, as the Simpsons puts it.
Right. Yes, in the future, I'd like you to deliver all headlines with Beyonce lyrics.
I'll try.
Please.
That's about the only one I think we could ever pull off.
Well, you
could
also
have been Taylor Swift.
it could have.
Believe me, I could do that actually probably a lot better than Beyonce, unfortunately.
Well,
but
speaking
anyways,
of, you're the best with. You had a Taylor Swift in your some Taylor's Swift.
Oh,
a story you wrote.
Yes, IBM Taylor Swift, which was just you saw when
pot
Swift was
meets
involved,
kettle.
It was just like, yeah, I know, but punning is what we do here. It's really good at.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Yes,
You're quite good at
that
it.
Use.
All right. Yes. For example, in the next headline, you used porridge, which I think means months. I'm not sure. You reported that a IT manager was handed a 30-month prison sentence for trashing his ex-employer's servers. I guess porridge means prison.
Yes, it means prison. Basically, it's a combination of things. There was a very famous British TV show called Porridge, which was set in a prison, and it was actually called prisons were called porridge before that because typically that was what you got. It was the cheapest form of gruel that would keep the prisoners alive and not very happy, which is kind of what jail's for in a way. But yes, this guy's spending 30 months inside, and I don't know. There's not going to be an awful lot of IT admin support to be done inside prison, but from the looks of it, he deserves to spend every single month in there because it was both a fairly nasty crime and also an incredibly stupid one.
And so, since we've been talking about encryption and spying and information, how did they find out?
Well, he was a prime suspect. He'd left the company 3 months before and gone to work for another firm, and when the investigation was conducted initially by the FBI, his name sort of came near the top of the list. So coming back to warrants, they sent a warrant down to Google to access his Gmail account. And once they were in there, they found that he'd been emailing himself details about the company's firewalls and servers. And he'd also gone on an online chat in which he'd bragged that he'd actually done this in the first place. So not
why
exactly
do they do that? I never understand why they'd end up doing that. That seems to be like the downfall of so many people in this situation. You've got to brag about it, huh?
I know. It's mind-bogglingly stupid, and yet so many people do it.
Man. They just can't help themselves.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I can kind of understand. If you really want to brag that much, talk to somebody. Pick up don't even pick up a phone. Go to a bar with somebody where it's nice and noisy and tell them about it. But no, this guy put it in an encrypted chat session. They also, by the way, got a warrants for his AT&T and Facebook details as well. But there was nothing on Facebook, but AT&T's records were quite handy in tracking this guy down. He eventually did a plea deal, and he's not only got 30 months in prison, but he's going to have to pay the company, I think it's about $325,000. So, yeah, a lot of garnishing on paychecks to come forward.
Yeah, $324,000.
Paychecks on that job that he's going to get because someone doesn't Google his name?
Yeah, I know. This is it. It's just his career as an IT admin is, I should think, if not over, then pretty much translated to a virtual nothing. He might be able to find, I don't know, maybe some Albanian state media is looking for an IT manager, and they won't Google it. But yeah, he's pretty much done in this business.
Yeah.
He could cook some porridge for.
Porridge. Porridge means prison. I learned so much.
Yeah, I didn't know that either. All right, transitioning. There's no easy segue from that to TNT fan of the day, but TNT's fan of the day is Sandro George at Darth_Venomous on Twitter, who says, "How I watch TNT while doing my algebra homework. Tech News Today is one of my favorite shows." Aww, gotta love to hear that.
I gave him an answer to his homework too, because you can see his homework there.
Oh.
It's algebra, and I just guessed because always guess D, right?
You know, there are apps that will figure that out for you.
Really?
Yeah, you point your camera at a math problem and it'll give you the answer.
Yeah, well, the problem's not in there. It's just the answers.
That's true. It was just the answers.
It's just the
All
answers.
right. So you may have. They might get it wrong because of you. I'm just saying.
I'm sorry.
And he's a Star Wars fan, which is always a nice thing.
Yeah. What did they say? Always, if you don't know, always answer.
Yeah.
B
C,
or something
D.
or C, or I guess it doesn't matter. You're probably gonna fail if that's your strategy. Show us how you watch or listen to TNT. Just record a video or take a picture of yourself or your setup and post it on Instagram, Google+, Twitter, Facebook, email, Peach, Snapchat. I don't know, any of them. Use the hashtag #HowIWatchTNT, and hopefully we will find it someday.
Well, up next, what professions are more likely to be swiped right on Tinder? But first, let's take a minute to thank the sponsor of this episode, Igloo. Anyone who has worked in a corporate environment knows how painful legacy intranets can be. The content is stale, the interface is ugly, and you can only access it at work. Igloo is an intranet that you will like. It's a cloud platform that helps you share files, collaborate on documents, blog updates, coordinate calendars, and manage projects. It's built using responsive design, which means everything you can do at your desk, you can now do on the go through any web browser. And anyone can add content based on their permissions with drag and drop widgets and a WYSIWYG editor. Igloo also offers a variety of access, authentication, and identity services to ensure that only authorized users have access in private clouds, over SSL, and with 256-bit encryption. Unlike other solutions, you can customize Igloo to fit your needs and work with your current IT investments like Salesforce, SharePoint, Active Directory, and coming soon, file sharing solutions like Box and Dropbox. It's great for growing companies and large enterprises looking to refresh their communication strategy. It's used by government agencies and companies like Hulu, Inventive Health, American Family Insurance, and Ipswich. Try it for free at igloosoftware.com/twit or sign up for a live demo to see it in action. And when you sign up through our link, you can get your own Igloo for up to 10 people. Absolutely free for as long as you want. That's igloosoftware.com/TWIT. And we thank them for their support.
I think, just before we get to this last story, I think you may have solved Twitter's people problem. Twinder.
Oh, Twinder.
Twinder. It's brilliant, right?
Twinder.
Yes, added functionality to swipe right and meet people on Twitter.
Oh, Twinder. Okay, got it. I was going with the twins. I was like,
no, I think it's a mashup of Twitter and
Okay.
That's right.
Got it now.
That wasn't where I was going.
There, shall we?
Yeah.
Although there is a Tinder for threesomes. I can't remember the name, but somebody tried to launch it a couple of months ago, and it's just the latest iteration of this thing, and I hope it's died a death, but still one of those things.
Sorry, I didn't mean
good
to
to
throw you
know.
off.
So Tinder, that's the app. So people who don't know, lets you swipe left if you don't like someone's face. It's excellent for the three of us who have partners to talk about.
And have never used the app.
Yes, and presumably all have found our partners before Tinder,
Yeah.
although I don't know that for sure. But recently they introduced the ability to also list your job in your profile in case you're looking, in case you're into that thing, knowing what job a person has that you're looking for, who might be your future mate. They just listed the results of the jobs people are most likely to swipe right on. So I think we can take a look at that. For male, it's pilot.
Pilot.
And for female, physical therapist.
Number 5 on male is TV and radio personality.
Oh, really?
I think it's very interesting that what was it? It was CES. I think it was around CES time, and there were stories about how like a lot of like tech, reporters, there was a jump in like Tinder usage at CES. And anytime I see that, I'm like, yeah, but don't you know that like people recognize you, right? Like if you're in the media and you're using a service like this, people recognize you. Like that just seems like a story in the making for some weird reason. I don't know, but maybe I just don't understand Twitter or Tinder.
Tinder. Yeah.
Tinder.
Well,
apparently I want Twinder to exist.
I mean, Tinder works like it finds people that are close by to you. That's how it works. So you want to be able
but
it's
still,
an
you're at
advantage.
CES. Like, why would you do that? Anyways, okay, pilot.
Yeah.
You would do it because you wanted to find someone to date.
Oh, to date. To date.
Well, look, we're all successfully partnered up, but I have run an account on Tinder because I was trying to do an article on the number of bots that are out there. But I have to say, looking through that list, I was shocked at physical therapists, the number one for women, because those people are torturers. I mean, it's just like, I don't know what men are looking for, but being forced to carry medicine balls around and really sort of knacking yourself up in a hospital gym is not my idea of a good time.
But apparently it is some people's idea of a good time. I think you answered your own question there. Pilot is just funny to me. And of course, engineer is on the men's list, but not on the women's list, sadly.
Well, TV radio personalities on the men's list, but not on the women's list either. So,
but founder entrepreneur is number 3 on the women's list. I think that's good.
Yeah. I mean, everyone loves a pilot, and firefighters are also fairly high up on the list because no one can turn down a fireman, or at least that's what my firefighting friends tell me. It's interesting. Interior designer, the number 2 for women. I mean, are there that many men who just really can't pick their wallpaper? It's a very odd list of things. Flight attendant, I was expecting to be much higher.
Maybe what this is an indication of what careers have the most attractive people.
Yeah.
Maybe?
I mean, you've never met an ugly interior designer, have you?
I don't know. I don't know how many interior designers I've ever met.
I don't have one.
But I don't know. Tackle the data from a different perspective. Maybe that's something. I don't know. Models in there, so that seems to support my
financial advisor got on there. I mean, honestly, who wants to shag their accountants? It's just I don't get it at all. It's a very odd way of being a
maybe
person.
they don't know what Tinder is for either. Maybe they're looking, I'm looking for a financial advisor.
Exactly. I need some financial advice, and she's actually pretty good looking, so I could do a meeting with her. Sure, she's. Okay.
Well, I think
we're done. I need to stop.
Jason's blushing for if you're listening to the audio and thinking of changing over to the video. Like that's what you're missing.
This is why.
Jason blushing.
This is why.
Hello, mate. Right.
Iain, thanks for coming on. It's always so much fun when you're on.
Yeah, always a pleasure. Really enjoy it.
So what are you working on other than the stuff that we talked about today? Anything you want to kind of tease?
Oh, well, next week is going to be RSA. So 30,000 people are going to be pouring into the city, all trying to sell their latest security gizmo and making wild and extravagant claims. And it's my job to puncture them. So, they're going to be all next week. I'll be tripping back and forth in the Moscone Center, talking to the latest and greatest security people. And thankfully, we've got some good interviews lined up. But Bruce Schneier's agreed to have a chat. He's always good.
Awesome.
So, excellent. It's looking forward to it. And then just collapse at the weekend and do absolutely nothing.
Sounds wonderful.
Yeah, and this will be an interesting RSA with all the Apple news, too.
Yeah, I mean, there's going to be a lot of talk about that. Not just that, also Microsoft's got its ongoing case in Dublin over data access by law enforcement. There's a whole bunch of issues. It's not going to be quite as edgy as the one where RSA had just been accused of taking the NSA's money to balk encryption. But that actually spawned a rival conference. And the speakers from that have now actually, I was speaking to one of them, Mikko Happinen from F-Secure, and he's now coming back to RSA after a 2-year hiatus. So we should get some good people back and lots of good, interesting discussions and no doubt a number of incredibly boring keynotes.
Well, you're just the man to sit through them.
Oh, yes. Well, sorry, we do it so that you don't have to.
There we go. There we go. That's the nugget.
All right, Iain. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Iain.
Always a pleasure. Good to see you guys again.
All right. Talk to you soon. Tomorrow's awesome guest will be Dan Benjamin from the 5x5 Network. Super stoked to have him on tomorrow's show. TNT records live every Monday through Friday at 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern, 12 a.m. UTC at twit.tv/live. You can be a part of the show by emailing us at tnt@twit.tv. You can leave us a short voicemail. It's 260-TNT-SHOW. And you can find us on Twitter. We are at Tech News Today TV.
If you want to get our show, if you want to be the first one to get our show, subscribe.
Serial number 1.
Yep. You'll get it first. You will be the very first if you subscribe at twit.tv/TNT. You can also subscribe to our Twit newsletter at twit.tv/newsletter. We are on Facebook. You can find us there and join in the conversation. And if you want to tweet at me, I am at Megan Morrone.
And I'm Jason Howell on Twitter. Thanks to our technical director, Kara Cole, and everyone who help us produce this show every single day. Thanks to you for talking tech with us today. We will see you tomorrow, won't we? Yeah, we will.